a peer-led support community for parents with kids with mental health issues and or substances, and we kind of are focused on around 10 years old to about 30, because if a child has struggles with mental health and whatever sideways that goes, eating disorder, cutting, substance use, they kind of get stuck. So it takes them, you hear, right, all the time, 25, that their brains are going to grow. But these folks get stuck, these kids get stuck. So it takes a little longer than 25 for their brain to fully grow. So they're still kind of young, even at 30.
The water's fine, homie, jump into the deep end. Sow it, you will reap it. We talking how to start it, how to grow it, how to keep it. Take a deep breath. You are now rocking with Founder Secret.
Okay, who do we have today, Taylor?
We have Casie and Liz.
Hello.
Oh, yeah. Hello. Thank you. Oh, do we say something?
No, we're going to jump in.
Let's do it. We're so excited to have you today. I think you guys have a super interesting business, and the reason I think it's interesting because it actually affects people and their health and their lives, not just make money, although it should make money as well as it grows.
Pay our people.
And so,
yes, that helps.
So yeah, Taylor, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so Casie, I know you were a flight attendant for 26
years.
26 years.
Yes, I just retired at the end of December. And I was, because all of us who were ex-Continental say that, I was Continental first and then I was United. So,
was there a story there? Is Continental better than United?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but yes.
Okay.
She's already in trouble.
I'm already in trouble,
started.
and they're revoking my retirement right now.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. One of those things that I always thought was, I wish I'd become a postal worker first, so that I could, in 25 years or 20 years, retire and have another life at 50, and actually a little older than 50. And this is where I am. My children were struggling, and I was trying to fly and work, and constantly worried whenever I was on the plane. And so I got hooked on, I want to do my next thing, and the passion was starting other parents like me.
How long were you a flight attendant?
26 years.
So during those 26 years, do you ever have other business ideas or businesses on the side?
No, I didn't.
PTA.
And that's probably why, because I was super involved with my kids. And I was PTA president for 8 years and running lots of things for schools. So that's definitely was my big jam then, as well as flying. And honestly, when you're a flight attendant, it's your life, it's your other family. I'm sure that you guys feel that way with your people you work with and EO and stuff like that. And yeah, it becomes, and they're super supportive even now of what I'm doing. They're just oh, look, you've taken what the next thing is.
Well, what made you want to start something after all those, obviously retirement time aside? I'm just wondering, why was it meeting Liz, or how, what's made you actually say, okay, I'm going to start a business?
Because I have 3 children. Each of them have had their own struggles. My middle child went more severe with substance use in his teen years. And we didn't even see his junior year. And we followed all the things that healthcare told us told us to do. And those things didn't work. So we had to do a GoFundMe. And I was successful at it. I raised $70,000 at GoFundMe, and my son was able to go off and get the help he needed. And I felt so alone, and I did not want anybody else to feel alone. And I'd never wanted cost to be a barrier in life. And I was that kind of just started, that little seed back in 2018, 2019, and then 2020 happened. My son was still at a program. And everything was shut down. We couldn't go visit him. And I brought it out to the families. I started support groups for that program. That Liz and I met on this path.
Yeah, so when our boys were both in the same therapeutic boarding school, they would have parent weekends, which were really intense. It was therapy, it was with our sons, and you met all these amazing parents that were in it with us. And that's the first time, for me at least, I don't know for you, that I actually met people going through exactly what we were going through. And what was also amazing was, like, if I closed my eyes and listened to these boys, they were all my son. They were just smart and generous and giving. And I'm like, wow, this is so interesting. Like, there's maybe because they were more sensitive, I'm not quite sure, but it was just really not the stereotypical, like, drug addict kid on the street. And you started to really bond with these parents. And with COVID shutting things down, Casie then reached out and started and said to her small group of parents, I think it was like 15, you said, why don't we start our own support group on Zoom? And essentially, she asked me to join, and I, being a grumpy New Yorker, stereotype, I was like, seriously? I'm already in therapy. This is my son's issue. Why do I have to do something else? And she was like, please just come, please. And I was just like, ah. And literally the very first moment, the very first session, I remember I was telling a story about my son punching a hole in the wall and how I didn't feel safe in my house. And this was not Gabe. This was not my son. And, you know, I got very emotional, and I felt like this was so personal, and literally every little square was shaking their head yes. And it took my breath away. I was like, oh my God, they actually have all had that same experience. And so as we kept going with these support groups, which Casie was doing for free with her own time, eventually all the parents started to talk, and it grew in 1 year to how many?
350 people, 8 support groups. And the program that our son was at said their first time of having another get-together with the parents within 2 months, they saw a change. The parents were involved. The kids were moving forward faster in their own progress because their parents weren't focused on them anymore. They were part of the process. They were walking alongside them. And that's when I was like, oh, everybody needs to have this, and we've got to go global. We got to do this for everyone.
I mean, the owner of the facility or of the treatment center, I think he had been overseeing it for 15 years, said, like, he'd never seen such a difference in the parents, that they showed up differently to therapy with their kids, that they got rid of their mentorship program. They didn't need it because there was already a group, you know, people already bonded. And we're talking people from all over, right? So once you hear that, and then Casie was brilliant in the sense that she was surveying parents and getting feedback. And literally people were saying they had a better relationship with their son as a result of going to these support groups. Wow. So to me, like, as a designer and with a marketing background, like, it's really hard sometimes for me to have data to prove, like, why something is working. And so that was really exciting, like, looking at these surveys and hearing these responses, like, literally proving it works. So, you know, she came to me because of my background, and we're like, oh yeah, this will be easy.
And then what happened?
And then we cried. I mean, it's been a journey. We started about 2 years ago, and, you know, we just assumed it would be easy because mental health is so topical, right? And we knew it worked, and we had so much, or she had so much success that first year. And so we had really all the wrong assumptions. Oh, people will pay for this. Oh, people will come in. And, you know, we got a lot of help. And I think along our journey, we didn't have the right people helping us, right? Didn't really understand this idea of a SaaS business. We were very much focused on mental health. Didn't understand, really didn't get our user profile. Like, we just, we didn't even know how to set the right business up. We had an LLC at first, and didn't realize you can't go to investors technically. You know, you need to be a C Corp. So it's like amazing how many mistakes we made.
Can you speak to like what is the program? It's a Zoom group for parents. Is it only of sons? Is
No.
that the idea? Okay.
It's We are a peer-led support community for parents with kids with mental health issues and or substances, and we kind of are focused on around 10 years old to about 30. Because if a child has struggles with mental health and whatever sideways that goes, eating disorder, cutting, substance use, they kind of get stuck. So it takes them, you hear, right, all the time, 25, that their brains are going to grow, but these folks get stuck, these kids get stuck, so it takes a little longer than 25 for their brain to fully grow, so they're still kind of young even at 30. We have 2 peer parents who that's our facilitators. And full disclosure, that support group that I ran for 2.5 years, guess where I got my parents from who run it? So they're right in the middle of it. And they have been trained and they run all different kinds. We have 17 in a week. One based on trauma, one based on adoption, some general ones, one for young adult, parents with young adults, one's for ones who are in programs, one for ones who are on their way out of programs.
The men's group is
really strong,
which is amazing.
And so they have a meditation. They start with a meditation. They have a topic. They kind of talk about it. So they're learning self-care, focus on ourselves in a space that's for them. And it's really your first time as a parent where you're like, oh, we don't have to always talk about our kid to start to actually help the kid. So we've learned that as we get stronger, our families get stronger, and it changes the whole dynamic as the parent grows.
Also, you don't have to turn your camera on. You don't have to put your name in, because what we've learned is, it's hard for some people to join. They don't really know what a support group is. There's so much shame. They're afraid they might know somebody. And sometimes there's so much power just in listening. And so our platform is also, besides these 17 support groups, and our goal is to be 24/7, so somebody can get in at any point. But, we got to be realistic. We got to start somewhere. We also have every Thursday, we have speakers come on. And these are people, acclaimed booksellers, published authors, podcasters, experts in the field. And as Casie says, what's so powerful about these meetings is parents actually get to ask questions with these experts, which is really very special. But we also record them. So if you weren't able to go, and as a member, you can watch those. We have monthly panels. There's a lot to learn about navigating insurance. So we might have some experts come on about that. And then we have a resource hub. So that's 1,000 podcasts, books, articles. We have a researcher on our very tiny team, which I remember when Casie was like, I really think that's important. I was like, we don't have the money. That's crazy. And now I'm like, oh my God, she was totally right. There's so much value in having somebody doing the research, writing white papers for us, helping us build this hub and owning it. And we have a glossary because there's a lot of acronyms. Parents didn't know what fentanyl was. You don't know these terms. And then we also have a directory that's vetted professionals, so people, can feel comfortable and find resources, because it's really hard.
How do you walk the line between being kind of a service for good versus a business versus, I'd want to help everybody, right? So how do you kind of walk that line?
Yeah, actually, the same lines I was also going to ask, because you call it a program, I think, right? Is that what you call it? Or maybe you called it a program, a support group. I'm curious, what made you say, no, this is going to be a business, not a not-for-profit, or just the hobby we do on the side and have something else pay the bills? What made you really this is going to be a money-generating business?
Do you want to take that?
Sure.
We hear this a lot.
We do hear, literally every single time
today.
you're talking to someone, they say, why are you not for profit? And you're like, I volunteer for the Partnership to End Addiction. So that's where I learned even more about parents. They run parent support groups. They have parent coaches. I learned a lot there. And through that, I learned, and I hope I'm not going to offend anybody, how much of a nightmare it is to run a nonprofit. How much is controlled by the outside versus you. So you get really, you may have missions and things that you want to do, but if the people who are giving you the money or the grant don't want you to do that, or you
Right.
can't prove that, yes, this is still valuable, which happened for me because I was trying to run an LGBTQ community, one for the partnership, it got yanked. Oh, well, that's not shit. And you're just like, well, but we have to wait. It's going to take time, but nope. And that was why we're like, one day we will be able to fund a nonprofit and just give them the money and they can do, have a little more freedom than being grant oriented. And so that's why we started this way first.
Interesting. And I think you had some questions about how you structured. You mentioned doing an LLC at first. Are you guys 50-50 partners?
Yes.
How did you decide that, or was it just kind of the default?
I mean, we've heard that's really stupid. So somebody just told us. They were like,
literally
that's
just
the
told
worst decision you could ever make.
And we're like,
I think, part of it is we're 50-50 monetarily. Like, we both put in because that's both what we could do and we needed to. And so that part, but I don't view she's the CEO, I'm the CMO, and we know, like, Casie's, she literally quit her job for this. This became her mission, her passion. And not to say it's not mine, but I can't give it 100%. So I don't feel like it's a 50-50 partnership, but it is on paper.
What do you mean? What do you feel it is?
Because she's doing it 100%
see.
and I'm doing like 70%.
Yeah, because we didn't get into this. When did you start your first business?
Like a ding dong when I was 24.
Why is that a ding dong?
Because I knew nothing. I was just like rebellious. I was like, screw this, these people. I was just rebellious. I worked in the publishing industry and I saw, the first place I was at was Harper & Row, and they were branding to become HarperCollins. And we had 50 designers on our staff, and they were like, yeah, we're outsourcing it. And this was in 91. And they were paying $1 million. And, I was like, what? To do a logo? Like, I didn't really understand this. And I couldn't believe how much money they would spend on something like this when you had a team of designers. And then I went on to John Wiley & Sons, and now I was an art director. I was 24, I had a little bit more clout, and they were building their first website. And so I was like, oh my God, yes, this would be great. And I went to all the other art directors, let's team together. Who knows the product better? And I went to the executive staff or executive team and, pitched it. And they were like, yeah, no, we're going to outsource this. And it was $500,000. And so I was just like, I want that work. And it wasn't even the money, it was just better work. And it felt like there was more respect for people that were not in-house. But I say it was stupid because it's like I just didn't have experience. I didn't have mentors. I really hadn't worked at enough companies to learn things. So it was really like just grit. And then becoming a mom is like, then you can't give it 100%. So, so I like to look at it as like a lifestyle business.
So how many years, I guess, you've been doing that same business?
26 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Magic
Yeah.
numbers, right?
Yeah, same amount of time.
Yeah. Oh my God, I didn't even
Magic
realize
numbers.
that. That's
Yep.
crazy. Should we gamble? Did I say that?
So 26 years, do you think that there were some lessons that you've taken from the design business that apply here? Is that, or there's not very much carryover?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I'm hiring agencies to help us. And, I just don't have the bandwidth to be able to, and I don't want to mix it too much. And it's been very interesting to watch how other agencies work. And honestly, quite frankly, I've been a little disappointed. And now I'm like, oh, this is why I've been in business for 26 years. Because of certain things
Not just luck.
Well, I mean, I think you have to be good, right? You have to be a good designer. Let's just take that off the table. But what I've learned is so much is about relationships. And I personally, for me, if I have a difficult client, that excites me because I like to try to figure out what is it that's bothering them. I mean, it can't be the type we chose or the color. There's always something underlying there. And also, people need to feel heard. It's all the same principles of, these support groups that I apply to my business. And what I found interesting recently is like people not accepting mistakes, being defensive, charging me extra, things like that I would never approach. But just in terms of my learning, I mean, I'm learning a lot in terms of the fact that this is, an e-commerce, right? And I was always B2B, but at the same time, it's still like, what's the right message? How do you communicate to somebody? How do you tell it visually? It's all those same principles. So I find it very exciting working on this.
So what made you want to start this business? Or rather, this additional business, right? You already had a business.
I know, right? What the heck?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Well, COVID happened, and so I'm certified as a woman-owned business, a WBE in New York City. And so I had a number of city and state contracts. And when COVID happened, and they were large, they were like 7-year contracts. And in one fell swoop, they got canceled. I'd never seen anything like this, ever. And I had a lot of work that I had bid on that I had verbal okays for other big contracts, for RFPs that are called, and those got canceled. So like in one fell swoop, I was like, oh my God, am I gonna continue? Like, what does this look like? And I definitely was panicking. I have survived many things, but I'd never seen anything like this ever. And so, I just thought maybe it is time. Maybe that's a sign. Maybe it's telling me it's time for me to pivot. I've done this a really long time. My passion is there. The timing is right. So that was part of why I dove in. But at the same time, Right Design I was getting little bites. I was getting work. Definitely entrepreneur organization. I had so many people supporting me, saying, don't make any rash decisions. You can't have been in business this long to let COVID knock you down. I mean, it was just, honestly, it was EO that really made me show up, kept me going. I know, it makes me, I said I wasn't going to cry, but it makes me emotional because it really was this fellowship of people that were like, we will not let you close your business. There's no way. So, and it was interesting because in the last 2 years, most of my business has been from entrepreneur organization businesses, which was never the case for me. So, and for me, my struggle is I can't give anything 100%. And so I'm really working on how do I do this, especially because we, need money and obviously you need to hire people. So we're in that phase right now.
But what do you mean you can't give anything 100%?
Well, I have to work on Right Design. I have bids, so I've got to do that. But then over here, other parents like me, I want to retweak the website. So I'm constantly going back and forth. I try to be really good with my time, but it's almost impossible in some ways.
So what do you do? How do you balance it?
I work 7 days a week right now, which I've never done. That's the thing. I was always about quality of life. But I kind of feel like it's, I manifest it. My EO forum group, we do a lot. We did this thing called PQ, Positive Intelligence.
Yeah.
Yes, which was amazing. So we've worked on a lot of this, and I see other parents like me where it can be. I know it will take off. I know there's a need. And I also really do believe Right Design has a need also. And so there, I just have to figure out, right? At what point, I'm setting myself some goals, in January, I'm going to make some big decisions, that type of thing.
Where do you all see the growth? Is the growth around finding more parents? Is it to partner? I know you both met at this
boarding school.
Boarding school. Is it
school.
finding more of these boarding schools?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see kind of the growth?
Yeah, our growth is working within the program community. That's one way to say it. Which is residential treatment centers, therapeutic boarding schools, regular boarding schools, inpatient programs, outpatient programs, because that's a center core of families who have acknowledged that, hey, we got to do something about what's happening in our house. And then our hope is by families coming in who are just in the beginning of the chaos that can happen, that comes with a lot of mental health issues. And I talk with my hands a lot as I'm realizing this.
That's good. So we have video.
Is that those parents will learn from what the parents who are in programs are learning. So they don't necessarily have to go to the programs. They can learn from the experience from those who are able to afford it. And so we want, like, it doesn't matter what your financial space is, that you can be able to learn and gain knowledge and experience. And that's the best part about, I think, Liz and I. Like, we really are very good at staying in our own lanes. Like, I didn't even know that was possible.
And I never thought I could have a partner. I mean, I have 26 years of doing my own thing, right? And I was like, oh, I got to navigate another person? Like, I wasn't successful in my marriage, so this should be interesting.
How do you all make it work?
I think there's just so much respect for what each other's doing. And, like, I truly believe that she knows how to build the programs, right? Like, train the peer parents. That is not in my wheelhouse. If anybody asks a question, I will hand them off to Casie. And she really respects what I'm doing with the website and the marketing. And then, you know, the parts that we don't know, which are a lot, we're both trying to find the right persons to help us. And then we'll share why we think this is appropriate or not. I just think there's a lot of respect for one another. Like, she respects my time, I respect hers. But I also know, like, she is working her ass off. And so am I, right? So it's something really cool to have somebody that's working just as hard as you. Because I've never experienced that because I had my own business. And, you know, your employees don't necessarily work as hard as you. I mean, that's my... Are you crying?
I'm crying.
Oh, my God. She does this a lot.
It's just...
Aw, this
She's
is
an
so
amazing
sweet.
human being to work with, so...
That's so cool. I love this. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. We said we weren't going to cry.
That's okay. That's what it's about.
Well, and the other part that I think is really cool is that my connections with EO, I think, are really, like, I feel like doing this business has been a culmination of everything I've been working towards, right? Like the creativity, the understanding, like how to promote a business, but then it's also the connections, like the fact that, like, you know, I met, like, not met you, you and I were at an event, and then you're like, oh my God, you have to talk to Flavio. Then I talked to Flavio, and then, like, then I see Flavio at the EO house, and I mean, it's just like such a gift, and like the amount of information people that are sharing and helping with us is like incredible, and I'm bringing Casie into this world, which is really fun.
What would you say are like the big challenges, right? What would it take for this business to be global and in everybody's pocket? What would you say are like your biggest challenges?
Trust. Getting parents to trust.
And programs.
And programs. And it's something that we did not anticipate, because we gave our trust to a program, and that program said, you're going to go and you're going to get help. They told us we had to go to Al-Anon. That was not our choice. We felt we wanted a broader idea, so that's another reason why other parents like me. But it takes so long to get trust from the recovery community, the mental health professional community, and the parent community. And they want to know a couple things. You're going to be around for a long time if I come to you, so that if crisis happens again, I can come back. I always have a place to come back to. And that if for the program and the mental health professionals, if I recommend you, I will always be able to recommend you. You're always going to be a place for some of my families to land. We didn't anticipate that at all.
Yeah, because we just knew the value of
Right.
it, and we just assumed everybody else
Everybody's
would.
gonna know that.
But we've pivoted our pricing structure and are offering, 3 months for somebody to come in for free and be able to have the experience, because we understand that it's going to take a little while, like at least for just the parents in general. And then we're also offering programs an amount of time for free as well, so that, our goal is for people to experience it, try it out, but usually you get 7-week trial period, like, so it's a long amount of time. And I believe that, like, once you experience it, like, it'll be the same for me. Like, it was that one meeting that was an aha. And I think that all it takes is that one meeting, that I really do believe it'll be an easy conversion. And we're even seeing it right now. Our attrition rates are just extremely low. People stay.
You said, I think what I understood you saying earlier is that it's not just a support group for the parents themselves, but it's actually like knowledge transfer from the two of you went through this kind of experience. You all learned things, and then you transfer that knowledge without them having to go and their kids doing it themselves. Is that right? Or can you kind of speak to what that is?
Explain that
Well,
one
let me
more
ask a
time.
question. So
I was like, wait a minute.
I guess the way I initially heard it is that it's a way for people to support each other, for parents to support each other. My brother had a pretty serious drug and alcohol problem. My mother, I'm sure, would have wanted this. And so this is kind of near and dear to my heart. And I think that what you're saying about feeling alone, she has said. But I heard a second part, and maybe I misheard it, but I heard a second part around where it's not just listening to each other, but it's kind of this shared experience. So here's what worked for me, or as a mother or father. Is that part of it as well, and not just hearing?
Yeah. So that is definitely what's part of it, is by, that's when I said in the meeting, we have like a meditation and a topic. So a topic may be something from Tiny Buddha, from Smart Recovery, like, from like anything that just in Young Pueblo. I love Young Pueblo. If you haven't read any of his stuff, it's amazing. And we'll just kind of read that. And then people will talk about, how does that feel for me? How does that resonate? And what is really cool is that kind of morphs into talking about what's happening in the house. And you start going like, yeah, no, that's not going to work for me. But so-and-so said that, and I haven't tried that. I might try that. That might work for me. And that's the beauty of the support group.
What I've also seen is when you have somebody new come in, they are learning a lot from people that are a little further along on the journey, right? They're talking about where they had their child go, or what they did, or who they talked to. And then when you're further along and you're in the group, it's sort of like it lets you see, holy cow, that was me. I've come so far. Because sometimes I feel like we're so in it, it's hard to really realize like your accomplishments or where your family is. And you start to see yourself in these new people and realize, wow, like we really have done a lot.
Curious on the structural things of building. You have an app, right? Is it a website or?
It's just a website right now.
And so people would go in there, log in, and then join a session. And who built that? I guess how did you find the people to build that?
Yeah, I mean, we worked with a developer. That was kind of my baby. So
how'd you find them?
It was just through another person that had recommended them and vetted them. They were passionate. I mean, the cool thing is, as we go out, everybody has a story, right? Like Taylor, you're just sharing, right? Like everybody has a connection to this and wants to be a part of helping us in some way. And like, yes, we have to pay them, but we were able to find this agency. They were extremely passionate to this as well and helped us build it.
Like, I'm curious, with you being in the agency space,
Yeah.
do you have some like hacks on how to find? There's a million agencies and people LinkedIn messaging you, I'm sure for various services.
Yeah.
From here all the way to India, and I'm wondering how do you have some like tips on how to navigate that?
I mean,
and choose
this is
the
where
best?
I've been challenged, is my point. Because it's like it was always I gave the work to me. So this has been my big surprise. And it's a good question because, I have done the vetting and it's been frustrating. Many things that were promised that were too many plugins in the back end that I didn't know, which caused problems in WordPress. Like, so, it's been a hard learning journey because I always went to recommended agencies, talked with them, vetted them, but in the end, it has been difficult.
Another question I had, so I just ask questions that come to mind.
Good,
But
I love it. This is fun.
Would you guys? What would be the exit for this business? Like, would you guys sell it to somebody comes along that's bigger, more well funded, and buy you, or is this? Do you have other plans for it?
Yeah, we're both of two minds, because we are so passionate about it, and because we both have such ideas of like where we want to be in 5 to 7 years. We also are older in starting it, and an exit strategy would be eventually to sell to someone, but have it be a package that fully is going and has security, and it would be something that very easy for someone to step in who has the same passion we did to take it on.
I mean, we're like, when you say what's the barrier, in some ways, aside from trust, it could be money for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're in that stage right now where, we're learning a lot. Like, this is not in either one of us, our wheelhouse on raising funds, right? Like, this is where I was like, Flavio, help me. I mean, it's a whole other world, right? And it's kind of painful. And it's interesting, like, talking to some other people that didn't do it in a finite time. They just continued to raise, like, or somebody who spent a ton of time talking to angel investors on this one website. They said they spent 8 months and they got one. Like, so it's like, it's really kind of surprising how hard it is. So there may be a point, like, it might not even be the exit. It might just be, that could be one of our barriers, right? Like, we really we know what we need to make this happen. We're very much bootstrapping it right now. And
Well, I don't understand, how would money help you overcome the trust barrier? Is there or if it's not money, is it something else that would help you overcome that?
it'll give us more
scale?
time. It'll just what we're seeing right now is, to me, it's almost an easy sell. Like, I just talked with a therapist who is going to be, in their mind, the largest boutique in-person therapy group in the East Coast. And they're opening, this was from a friend through EO whose wife recommended us talk to them. And what I'm hearing, and I'm not necessarily as much on the sales side, but that, like, people are trying to build their parent groups. Like, now everybody's realizing, oh my God, there's a lot out there about our young people, right? There's no surprise, like, there's a mental health epidemic for our young people, but nobody's really talking about the parents. And now all of these programs are realizing, like, okay, we've got to try to help them as well. And, like, some educational consultants said they try to start their own support groups during COVID. And then when I talked with this woman about what we were doing, she was like almost relieved. She was like, it was so difficult. You already have it. You've built the community. And same with these therapists. So we're hearing so many people want to just come in. And we've onboarded 4 schools. We have 10 now that are, like, very warm. But I think it's just time to, like, and money would give us that time to then build the trust. So it's almost like it goes hand in hand.
Yeah. And doing stuff like this, doing podcasts.
Right.
We don't have the funding to be able to be present at conferences.
Right.
That's a
true.
big piece of developing that trust and having that space, like, okay, I like you, and I'm gonna want to send my people to you. It's all, I mean,
see. Seems like a big channel sort of sales that happens more than simply direct to parent. Is that right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I have one other question. Is you mentioned attrition is really low, but it seems like, and maybe I'm thinking this wrong, but I almost think like a dating app. That success for a dating app is really for them to not be in the dating app anymore, right? They meet and get married and they don't use the app anymore. Is that the same? I guess I'm wondering, your business and that success is like, okay, everybody's recovered, they don't need a support group, and everybody's happy.
No.
I wish that was true.
Yeah.
That our families would be recovered in like 8 months. But it's a marathon. This is not. It's unfortunately it is. And so I do have experience of that from running it for 2.5 years. It's about 2 years. And then you start to have people who are like, okay, I'm going to just like go off and do my own thing for a while. And then all of a sudden, 5 months later, hey, Casie, so-and-so, my kid's struggling again. My kid's struggling again. My kid's struggling again. And my response now is, and you belong, go back to the support group. And then they come back like, oh my God, thank you for just reminding me just to go back to the support group.
I can say it's just not a linear process.
No.
I mean, we're human, right? Like, do you always feel good every day? No, right? And especially in the world of recovery, because at the end of the day, think about the root is like anxiety. Like, that doesn't necessarily go away. Yes, you can take medicine, right? There's a chemical part to it, but it's not linear, and it's up and down. And I mean, I know my experience with my son. We're in a really good place right now, but there are very tough moments, and I'm like, oh wow, that came back, or he triggered me, or I didn't use my tools, or but it's like, how long does somebody want to continue to go to support groups? That might be like when you're starting to feel better, right? That you might then say, okay, I could take a little break.
Then it becomes Netflix. And the person just pays for it. And it just kind of sits there in the background, that thing that you keep paying for. And then you're like, oh, you know what? I really need this today. Let me go see what's happening so I can go to, the aftercare meeting.
I know that there are groups in New York for entrepreneurs and in and out of New York. And part of the struggle with growing the groups is that the early people are very passionate and very smart and very interesting. And so because of those things, other people want to be around them, right? But the challenge is going from 100 to 500. Well, we grew so quickly, so we brought in kind of whoever could pay the money or whoever was interested, but maybe they're not as high quality as the early people. And then going from 500 to 5,000 really loses the quality, right? There are groups like Summit and others who have gone through these growths. I've seen it myself, where maybe I was early on, I loved it early on, but then when I got really big, I was like, this isn't what I signed up for. And I'm curious, like, how do you think that you'll address that, since this is such a people-driven business, right? You're really organizing groups of people, and I would imagine not everybody gets along with everybody else, and not everybody, of course I want to listen to your experience, but 1,500 people in, am I going to be as willing to listen to his or her experience? How do you kind of deal with that as it grows?
That's a really good question, because one of the companies that I researched actually is a pay-for program, and they have 600 people in their recovery. They're on the recovery side for people who use substances, and about 10 people talk. That's about all that talk. But the 600 people in the chat are like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. So just coming and listening, there's something about that in the mental health and recovery world that they don't even need to talk. They just want to come in and just listen, and they walk away feeling something. And I don't know if that's different for maybe an entrepreneur organization, because you guys are looking for advice. You're looking for someone to tell you, like, hey, this worked, this worked, this worked. Whereas in the world that I've gotten accustomed to since 2015, I've been around doing this for a while, is that sometimes it's just so helpful just to hear other people going through it. And I actually walk away and I've said nothing and I feel lighter. So I don't know why that's kind of crazy.
It also sounds so funny to hear, like, when you say, like, you don't like somebody. Like, that's never even occurred to me. Like, it's because it's not like I'm there to make friends. Like, that's what's so interesting. Like, it didn't even occur to me. But I feel that way in some of my networking groups. So it is just different. It's really just listening to somebody's story. And the good thing is, having two peer parents facilitate, you're going to make sure not one person is, like, hogging up all the time. Because that might bother me, right? If somebody's always taking up all the time, that's not really fair. So they'll manage that and navigate that. But, I think the chat is another form, to Casie's point, of communicating. So it's not necessarily just talking on the video.
Another part is that each support group tells you which two parents are leading it. And we have 25 of them. So you can go and check. And if you see so-and-so and that person doesn't resonate with you, you're going to go to the other one later. That's why we are fully transparent of who's leading the group that day. Because we want to acknowledge, like, I don't always like when so-and-so talks. So that I think that's a help for me,
point.
and that's why we do it that way. So we're fully transparent, so you can go and find the person that like speaks to you.
Cool.
I love it.
What other questions did we not get to?
Any kind of final things that you all want to share? How can people learn more? What's the kind of process? How can they learn more?
Well, first it's OPLM.com, so they can go there and
How'd you
sign
get a
up.
4-letter.com? I know, right?
Other parents
We
like
paid.
me.
We paid.
Yeah, I was gonna say a 4-letter.com. That's
I know,
very
it's
rare.
really
Can you
awesome.
share how much
right?
you paid?
No, it wasn't expensive. I think it was
No,
like
no.
$600.
Yeah,
I mean, it
no,
wasn't
no, there was
crazy.
no,
$600
didn't even
for 4-letter.com?
Yeah, it didn't even exist.
Great.
Can
Yeah.
you believe it didn't exist? It didn't
That's-
exist.
Yeah.
We also own .org.
Yeah, so we
Like,
bought
I
that
know.
right away
Just
too.
in case you go nonprofit.
Yeah, exactly. We're ready to go.
Exactly.
We're manifesting the future.
Yes, exactly. We just, our hope is that just people will try it out. I mean, the more I talk about it, every time somebody's like, oh yeah, I have somebody I could recommend to go in there, or I have people say, gosh, I wish I had that when I was going through that. Like, hats off to you guys for doing this. Yeah, so I mean, there's no doubt that there's a need and that we're filling something. There are other support groups, but there's nothing like ours in terms of, the amount of groups we have, the different times. We're trying to be sensitive to different time zones. And, we were in a support group at our kids' therapeutic boarding school, but once your child leaves, then you don't have that support group, right? So this is just for anybody.
Yeah, someone had our membership ambassador has a great way of saying it. We're not the therapist. We're not the doctor you go to. We're not the therapist you seek. We're the gym that you go to. That's the membership that you have control over.
Love it. Love it.
Boom. Well, thank
right.
you guys
Thank
so
you
much.
Thank you both for
guys.
coming.
It was awesome.
This is
That's a
awesome.
wrap.
Woo! Thank you for rocking with the homies. Taylor, Trusty, and Flavio. Seize the day, own it. Until next time, hold it down, hold it down. Hey.